So after we have formed our sludge and it has settled at the bottom, the rest of the water will be allowed to continue to the biological process under secondary treatment. In this biological process, the bacteria and the algae, microorganisms that come along with the organic matter, they will help us in breaking down the organic matter. But they can only do that because they are aerobic, they require oxygen. So we shall aerate them. That's why we call this tank an aeration tank. The aeration tank is going to help us introduce air in form of oxygen. That is going to create a conducive environment for these microorganisms here to start disintegrating or breaking down these organic particles into smaller tiny particles, which will later be allowed to settle down into this secondary clarifier. So we have had our primary clarifier, and now we shall have our secondary clarifier. Remember what happened in the primary clarifier under primary treatment was settling down of the large solid organic particles into sludge and the formation of scum at the top, which are scraped off by the scrappers, and then they are directed into the digester. So here the microbes are activated by the air, which is oxygen, and they will help us in breaking down. They will help us in breaking down all the organic matter that come, and finally we shall allow the water to flow into the secondary clarifier. Secondary clarifier is going to help us to settle down these particles of organic substances that have been created here to settle down, and they form the activated sludge. The activated sludge, why? Because the sludge that was formed in the secondary treatment method was after the activation of the microorganisms with oxygen. So this is formed the activated sludge that it will be directed into the digester via this pipe. So the activated sludge will be directed into the digester, and the sludge from the primary treatment or primary clarifier will also be directed into the digester. So what is the role of the digester? The digester contains various anaerobic microbes. Take a note that here the microbes that we are having here, they are entirely aerobic. They rely on oxygen introduced in the aeration tank, but here we shall have anaerobic microbes which don't require oxygen. So we shall adjust some things like increasing the pH at this stage, and also by addition of things like lime, and also creating an anaerobic environment which will help the microorganism to modify the sludge into the favorable manure that will be now eventually taken to the gardens. Manure that will be eventually taken to the gardens or to the agricultural fields. So the biogas will be given off as, for example, methane, because this is an anaerobic process. And finally, we shall have our sandy drying bed. The sandy drying bed will help us in drying. The sand will act as a mesh to filter out all the water so that the sludge can dry up, and also evaporation. By displaying the sludge, evaporation of water will help us in further drying of this sludge, such that we form a favorable manure that can later be transported by this vehicle to the various agricultural fields. So as we can see here, we can take this manure to the various agricultural fields. So I want you to observe how, so what we are forming here after the process of drying in this area here, what we are forming, this sludge is converted into a composite. So this is where we get what? Manure. So we have seen two main important byproducts of the sludge that we form. We are forming methane, and then sludge is also modified into a composite from that composite manure that we are going to take to the agricultural fields. Hope we are following. Then what happens to the water after the being clarified? Under the secondary clarifier, we shall allow it to go to another tank, which will help us perform the last procedure, and that is disinfection. So disinfection will be done by addition of various disinfectants to this water. What are some of those disinfectants? The chlorine, and the process will be called chlorination. So chlorine will help to kill the microorganisms that is there, and chlorine is widely used during this sewage treatment plants, because we don't want the majority of these microbes to go now and go contaminate the water in the rivers and what. So we have to chlorinate this water so that we can kill the microorganisms